Hi, hello. Happy Sunday to you. Take two. So, I wanted to have a discussion about Dave Chappelle and Jon Gruden. All right. And I wanted to get straight into it. So, first of all, let me tell you how I got there. When Dave Chappelle dropped his comedy special, The Closer, that's the end of his Netflix deal. I wanted to get into it then, but first of all, I didn't watch it yet. And when everybody was having their fresh debate, I personally do not make any type of commentary or don't feel like I can make any judgment or response when I haven't seen something in its full context. If you know anything about me, especially when I talk to my friends, I'm all about trying to get as much information as possible. Plus, number two, I don't think someone like a Dave Chappelle, you can actually judge them from like a 30-second clip. I'm gonna tell you why. Dave is the type of comedian that maybe a minute into his show, he'll say something, like he'll say a line. You might chuckle, you may not. And then 50 minutes later, he'll say that same exact line, the same exact way. And it'll resonate with you more because it's like the whole totality of it. So you're like, oh, snap. Now I really get what he was saying. So I look at Dave Chappelle as like a Kendrick Lamar album. You can't listen to a Kendrick Lamar album on shuffle. You have to listen to it to understand it. It's a concept album from track 1 all the way to track 17 in order for you to fully understand it. So that's how I view Dave Chappelle. All right. And to keep it a buck with you, to be transparent, I had a Netflix count on hold situation. Because times be like that sometimes. You got to put the important bills in front of the little smaller bills. And so, I was on hold. So I was sitting on the bench. I just go keep it a buck with y'all sitting on the bench. But I got a chance to actually watch it. And when I got a chance to actually watch it, I actually wrote a piece for Walks and Chews Bubblegum. And it was called Art and Agitation, Why Dave Chappelle is Doing His Job. And the reason why I named that, just to sum it up for you real quick, is because Dave Chappelle his special reminded me of my teacher who passed away last year, Brenda Perriman. She was an acting teacher that I had years ago when I was young. And I remember when one of her assignments used to be to go watch a movie over the weekend. And that following Monday, we had to discuss. And this girl came in class talking about how in the movie Soul Food, she hated Vanessa Williams' character. She couldn't stand her. She just like, I hate Vanessa Williams. I hate Vanessa Williams. Da, 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 da. And Ms. Perriman said, well, that means she did her job. If she got you and your emotions to rise, that means she did her job. And she said, art is supposed to do that. And so to bring it to the point, when I watch Dave Chappelle, when I see people making these discussions about it, the one thing that I felt like that was completely missing was that people having a misunderstanding what art is. And it seems as if when you look upon the masses, people feel like art is supposed to be this kumbaya. We're looking at roses, the sun, and we hold hands and we all come together, all unified. And that's just not the case when it comes to art. Art is a reflection of life. Art is supposed to spark conversation. Art can be beautiful and it can be we all admire it, and also it can make you scratch your head and it can make you go in the area that you're not supposed to go. And art, most importantly, that I think that people forget or do not know, is art is supposed to in its times cause disruption. It's supposed to disrupt. And I feel as when it comes to Dave Chappelle and his special, that's exactly what he did. Hence why, and you can also read the article yourself, when I wrote the piece, it breaks down about what is an artist's job. I even quoted James Baldwin, who said, quote, the fact that an artist has always attacked and it attacks now, as far as we can tell it, will attack all of our notions of safety and all of our notions of health, unquote. That's James Baldwin. You can Google that. It's called The Moral Responsibility of an Artist. And so that was the reason why I wanted to tag on that. Now, on the flip side, when you think about what happened with NFL former coach of the Raiders, Jon Gruden, there were some things that happened in the past week alongside with the Dave Chappelle special. Now, no one could predict that they were going to be able to come together. If you really thought Jon Gruden versus Dave Chappelle, you never thought that conversation would be in the same room. But here we are. Now, you're probably asking, why is that? I'll tell you why. Because Dave Chappelle, as you know, has made himself a reputation in recent years about his statements and jokes about the LGBTQ community. A lot of people of that community have been outraged and upset about what he had to say. And I saw a lot of people writing commentaries and think pieces and things of that nature. And no disrespect, I'm not going to call anybody by name, but I also felt that a lot of these pieces were written sort of to pander, because in Dave Chappelle's special, he talks about how his issue is with white males and how they move the goalposts. And he talks about how Caitlyn Jenner, why was it easier for Caitlyn Jenner to change Caitlyn Jenner's gender than it was for Muhammad Ali to change his name? It's a good argument. It's a good statement. It's a good something to think about. Now, he talks about how there are effects that people have when it comes to black people being disrespected versus when it comes to those of that community being disrespected. And my question is, I almost think there should be like a cultural, maybe rule standard, because there's a lot of conversations we're not having. When I grew up on Def Comedy Jam or BET Comedy and all that other stuff, everything seemed fine for us to joke about ourselves. It seemed perfectly okay for us to joke about ourselves, us as black people, this and this and this and this, or even talk about white people and everything like nature. But it seems like now we're in a climate where people are saying this can be joked about and that can't be joked about. And my thing, I think on the side of the artist, I do believe in artistic freedom, that you are attempting to go there. Now, on the reverse side of that, you can't throw rocks, throw stones, and they say hide your hands. Okay, you got to take whatever's going to come back to you. Just because you're daring, it doesn't give you an excuse. And when Dave Chappelle mentioned that, it was a lot of individuals that I feel like that missed that. Even though he brought up the point and he said they're not listening, they missed that. Okay, but here's the thing: I get that for those people who are of that community that feel offended. The reason why is because what's right in front of you? I'm a heterosexual, cisgender black male. I'm not the victim of a Dave Chappelle joke as far as right now, right? I'm not the victim of that. And the thing about comedy is there's always going to be a victim. There's always going to be an individual on the other end who's not going to laugh. And they can laugh seconds before at a joke. And then the next second they cannot laugh. You can be watching a comedy show like SNL or the classic In Living Color, a skit. One skit can make someone laugh, the next skit cannot. You know, one person can make a joke about Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's the only person in the room who's not laughing at that. That's the thing about when you're doing edgy comedy like that, you're not going to satisfy everyone. I do understand how it can be hurtful to tell someone of that community that, well, you just got to listen. If you just listen, then you'll get some of his points. If you can bear all the things that he's saying, then you can hear that. Well, listen, no one is entitled to sit through things that they find offended in order to hear the point that you want them to hear. That's the trickery of it. They're not. It's like telling black women, when I hear a lot of black dudes say, well, Kevin Samuel says a lot of good things. If you could just, go past the rhetoric and go past the things that he's saying, then you can hit the point. Nah, who wants to sit through that? Like, why? I'm not about to sit through racist, right-wing individual talking, or even a racist white liberal, whatever, talking racism so I can hear their point. That's my choice. I don't have to. But we also got to be able to point out there's a bit of truth in what he had to say. Because, to get back to the former coach of the Raiders, Jon Gruden, when the email leaked of a 2011 email, and those that don't know, the reason why there was an email that was leaked is because the Washington football team's former general manager, Bruce Allen, is being investigated for a lot of sexual harassment. And there was some, I'm paraphrasing it, some things with some cheerleaders and things like that amongst the order. So the Washington football team of the NFL is being investigated. And within that, they saw some emails of Jon Gruden in 2011 saying things. Now, the first email that leaked, he said something racist. He talked about a man's lips, a black man's lips, that is. And so the argument at that point was, well, technically in 2011, he wasn't working for the NFL. He was working for ESPN, so he should be allowed to keep his job. And then Jon Gruden, his reply was, well, I talk about everyone's lips. I call it rubber lips. I call them rubber lips of those who lie. That's what he stated. That was his statement. And you know what's so messed up when it comes to things like that for us is that with black people, we have so many insults and stereotypes and tropes and things that we have against us that they can actually argue some points. You can be like, well, you can't have lips. He didn't say coon, because there's so many other things you can exchange for. And I think sometimes other movements and other minorities might miss that when it comes to us, is that, yeah, The reason why you can hold on to your insult is because there ain't as many insults they got for you as they got for us. We got 400 plus years of insults of us to the point where they can either be like, nah, he ain't call you this, because there's so many other things you can call a black person that can insult them. So he not only was he able to keep his job, but he coached a few days later. Then emails leaked. It was almost, you can definitely tell whoever leaking emails, it was strategic because they leaked it to the Wall Street Journal, I think. And on those emails, he talked about everybody. He didn't leave nobody out. He talked about the Native American and Indian community, about the Washington football team changing their names. He had some sexist, misogynistic words that he had for women in general. And then he also said some gay slurs to the NFL football Commissioner Roger Goodell, calling him the F-bomb. And he also talked about gay people on there. And mind you, the Raiders have an openly gay player on their team. So guess what? Then he resigned. Jon Gruden resigned immediately after that. And, there you have it. And so there are a lot of people who are pointing out of what Dave Chappelle said. They're like, hey, listen, this is what Dave Chappelle was talking about. This is where it is right here. When he talked about something in racism, nothing happened. He was able to keep his job. There was even black people that was defending him. Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy, remarkable individual, defended Jon Gruden when those racist statements came out. Jon Gruden at first was saying, I don't have a racist bone in my body, which, let's on the side note, whenever white people say they don't got a racist bone in their body, you have tons of bones of racism in your body. Okay. Even if you are unintentional about your actions, you inherited years and years and centuries of racism, that even your actions are racist, whether you deem it racist or not, unintentionally. Okay. So you are a part of that. You inherited that. Now, you might be a little bit woke. You might be a little bit conscious to that point, right? And you might be an individual who can actually be aware of that and work on that. And if you are, listen, we call you ally, advocate. But if you are in denial of that and you think you don't have anything of that, then yeah, not only are you a liar, but you're deeper into racist than you thought. But that's neither here nor there, because after the rest of the emails came out, we see that how far he almost don't like nobody who is not a straight white male. And a lot of people are pointing that difference. So does that make Dave Chappelle right? Does his truth make him right? Well, you can be right, but you can be wrong how you go about it. Dave Chappelle is right. The action when it comes to coming down on black people, specifically when it comes to black women, the repercussions aren't the same. We see that. There's not only this example, this is a recent example, but there are documentation of how it doesn't hold as much weight. You think about the Me Too movement, which was started by a black woman. It didn't catch the buzz it did until white women started talking about what had happened to them with Harvey Weinstein, right? And you can talk about, we have all the examples of when blackness raises their voice, there's almost like, oh, here you guys go again. And when the other community raise their voice, they get done. Now, here's the thing. I used to argue with people all the time, and I still do when it comes to some of my friends who just doesn't get it. I'm like, listen, the LGBTQ community, when you say that they're getting a lot of things done, what rights do they have that we do not? They're actually catching up to rights that we had already fought for. Now, if you want to make the argument that they're getting their rights quicker than we have gotten ours, then yeah, you can do that. And you know why? It's because white males. White males are a part of their community, therefore things get done. That's not a secret. But that should not have to be a choice. I tweeted this earlier this week. We should be able to have discussions for understanding versus having like arguments to discriminate. It shouldn't be so tribal. It shouldn't be so everybody on this end because you believe in that, and then this person on that end because you believe in that. You should be able to hold one or two thoughts or three thoughts in your head at the same time. You can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Yeah, shameless plug. I totally got it. Shameless plug. You can do that. But there should not be an issue when it comes to understanding also that on your way to make a point, artist, quote Dave Chappelle, you have offended people. Yeah, there are some lessons in there, but there are people defending. And listen, I can't tell people how to offend. I can't tell people that. But I should be able to make a compelling argument about a statement without being pushed in this umbrella of someone that because I listen or support, that means I hate this group. Because that is the opposite of that. I don't hate this group. I'm just understanding where it's coming from, because just like the LGBTQ plus has an experience, he is speaking about something that has my experience. But you should be able to hold one thought and not dismiss someone else. That's the intention of that. That's what art is supposed to do. Now, what's the grand answer for that? To be able to come together? I honestly, I have no clue. I have no clue. I'm just here to state, when it comes to art is not here to hold your hand. Art is not here to make you feel good about yourself. Art is not here to cover you up in so much sunshine in the world. That's not what art is. Art is to be here and to be able to have this discussion. And it's okay to say that I don't have the answer right now, but I have enough understanding to try to get there. There are parallel lines when it comes to Jon Gruden and Dave Chappelle. And we should be able to acknowledge both of them without being put in these different separate spaces and without our voices not being heard. That's just my take on that. Let me know what you think. That's how we're going. Just want to spin that on you. As usual, you can check out what I wrote as far as art and agitation while Dave Chappelle is doing his job. It's in my piece in walksandchoosebubblegum.com. Till elsewhere, deuces.